Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Bamutaze from the Appropriate Technology Center for Water and Sanitation, Uganda. It's my pleasure to present to you the findings of this baseline survey carried out in Uganda and Zambia. Shows that a biggest percentage of vulnerable people do not fetch water by themselves. However, those who do fetch the water experience a number of difficulties. These difficulties have been categorized into three. The first category is the difficulties relating to access to water source outside the homesteads. The second category is the cost of access. And the third category is access to water in-house. I begin with access to water sources outside the homesteads. 61% in Uganda and 70% in Zambia indicated that they have difficulties accessing the water outside their homes because of the fact that they are weak and disabled. There was also a challenge identified as the containers used to carry water are too heavy for these people with disability. The percentage for Uganda was 33, bigger than the 15% of Zambia. Another challenge here was the fact that the water sources are located very far from the homesteads. And closely related was the challenge of the fact that the hand pumps, the pumps to the boreholes are too heavy for the vulnerable people to pump by themselves. All these are challenges that make access to water hard for the vulnerable category of people. 19% in Uganda and 3% in Zambia indicated that often a time they are refused to touch the water because the community believes that they are dirty. And a case particular for Uganda, some of these people have epilepsy and the community members feel that they will pass it over to them. The second category of challenges is the cost of access to water. It should be noted that both in Uganda and Tanzania, the main source of water is borehole water. And all water users are required to pay a monthly subscription to use this borehole water. 81% in Uganda and 26% in Zambia indicated paying these monthly user fees, but still 24% in Uganda and 12% in Zambia indicated that this fact that they pay for water affects their level of water consumption. And when they cannot afford to pay, they devise alternative means. One of them is to get water from the unclean sources, borrow water from the neighbors, or borrow money to pay for the water. And in worst case scenarios, they just do away with the water. The third category of challenges relating to access to water is the access to water in-house. On this note, over 80% of the vulnerable members in both countries indicated that they use the water the same way as the other household members, and they also pointed out that they have enough water for drinking. However, in Uganda, about 38% and less than 10% in Zambia indicated that they use less water. The barriers pointed out at this point include the fact that some members cannot carry the water containers themselves. In Uganda, it's 29%, and in Zambia, it was 22%. The other challenge pointed out here was the fact that sometimes when these members need water, there is no one at home to provide the water, so they end up using less. When we look at the findings on sanitation, we categorized them into two: challenges relating to household sanitation and challenges relating to public sanitation. I begin with sanitation at household level, access and barriers. The vulnerable members of the families use the same toilets as everyone, that is indicated in the graph, at least over 70% in Uganda and over 80% in Zambia. They use the same toilet facilities as the other members in the families, but still there are cases of open defecation, whereby in Uganda about 40%, and in Zambia slightly above, they defecate in the fields. And then in both countries, about 40% have no access to annual cleansing materials. What are barriers pointed out here? One of them is the lack of support in terms of infrastructure support for these vulnerable people to be able to access the toilets. Infrastructure support would include the rails, which are lacking, and seat pans. In Uganda, this is 41%, and in Zambia, it was 29%. The other difficulties pointed out include the fact that the footpaths are slippery. Sometimes they are too small, and then there's not enough space inside the toilets for the vulnerable people to maneuver their way through. No sanitation, no dignity. In Uganda, there were reports from about 15% and 16% in Zambia indicating that the vulnerable people need help to use these toilet facilities. And by implication, this means that since they are always helped, they do not have privacy when answering the call of nature. 40% in Uganda wait for help, and when they don't get help, in such cases, they end up soiling themselves. There were also cases whereby people indicated they eat less, such that they regulate the rates at which they require to go to the toilets. Adaptations made at household level. 21% and 25% in Uganda and 21% in Zambia, households indicated that they have made some efforts to make toilets more accessible. However, there were also reports indicating that the vulnerable members were not consulted when these adaptations were made, particularly for Uganda. And in Zambia, 38% of the households considered making adaptations, but again they felt it is too expensive. Looking at access to public toilets, what are the barriers? 39% in Uganda and 13% in Zambia have troubles finding accessible toilets. And in that case scenario, some are housebound because they are not mobile. The barriers here pointed out include the fact that these people are always teased or jeered at when they go to use public toilets. Access to hygiene. At household level, The vulnerable people indicated that they wash as often as others in the households and bathe daily like their other household members. However, a high percentage of over 70% in both countries, they need help when it comes to bathing. And this indicates that they don't have privacy. But there's also another challenge to carers who are scared of the fact that they might easily contract the diseases from the people they are helping. In Zambia, 73% indicated they are happy with the level of privacy they are getting. However, there were also reports that the vulnerable people did not want to burden others. Impact. What impact does caring for the vulnerable have on the carers? One thing to point out is that the carers are predominantly adult women who always ration their time between their daily chores and helping the vulnerable family members. Their help is always relating to water, sanitation, and hygiene. In Zambia, 23% feel that caring for others limits time for them to undertake other household chores. To wrap it up, the study revealed a lot of similarities between Zambia and Uganda when it comes to access to water, hygiene, and sanitation services for the vulnerable people. And one key finding is that these vulnerable people are significantly left out when it comes to provision or access to water, hygiene, and sanitation services, thus the need for urgent intervention. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening.